Well, hello everyone. It's Miss Darling in the studio. I welcome you back, and if you're here for the first time, I hope you'll find this content pleasing and worthwhile and that you'll subscribe. And if you do, hit the notification bell so you're notified anytime I upload. I do have links in the description box and also in my Etsy store. There's a lot of resources to help you in your projects, not just this one, but just about anything. So please be sure and check that out if you haven't already. So today I thought I'm going to start on another journal. And let me tell you a little bit about my plans for this one. This is going to be focused on weddings, wedding couples, brides, and also Japanese. My sister and I both grew up in Japan, and so we have lots of memories of that. And so I've collected vintage photographs of different places in Japan that are meaningful to us. I'm going to incorporate that in here. But also, my sister has been in the wedding business for several decades, and so I thought it would be fun to also incorporate a little bit of wedding imagery in this, particularly vintage, because I ran across some photographs in my mom's belongings after she passed that were taken in the 1920s and 30s of weddings of friends of theirs in Japan. And so that's what kind of inspired this. Now, you don't have to obviously do the same type of journal. I hope you will craft along with me, but perhaps, make a journal of your own memories, that places you've been, where you grew up, things of that nature, that things that are meaningful to you. And that's what I'm going to be doing. Now, I have gotten started on an identical journal for myself, and here's just a real brief glimpse of how I've started that. Not going to show you too much of that at this point. I'm going to make a one signature journal for my sister. She's not into journaling, and so I don't see the need of making a full-blown journal for her with lots of journaling space. She's never going to write in it, but I'm just going to make her a small journal that will be filled with imagery and photographs that will be meaningful to the two of us. So that's my plan, and I hope you'll stay with me and see how it develops, and we'll go from there. Now, the first thing I did was I like to use mat board. It's thicker than cardstock, and so I keep a stock of that on hand. And I just took a single sheet 8.5 by 11 mat board and cut it in two. And so you can see here are the two pieces that I got from a single sheet. And then I cut a 1/2 inch spine, and that's plenty big enough for a one signature journal of about 12 to 15 sheets of paper, and folded, of course. And if you want to do a thicker journal, then consider like maybe a 1 inch. And so when you lay it out, you need to make sure that you leave a gap between the spine and each side because of the thickness of the mat board. When you go to close it, if you don't leave a gap there, then it's not going to close very well for you. So, be sure and leave about the same width, the same gap as the depth of your substrate. Obviously, if you're using something that's thinner, then than mat board, then you don't need to leave as big a gap. And then I just take some of this duct tape. The color I happen to have on hand is black. It's maybe not ideal for the way I'm going to be doing this, but it's what I have on hand, so it's what I'm going to use. I will, I think about investing in some white or off-white duct tape for the future. I want to cover this with lace, and obviously if you're using black, you've got to then make sure you cover the whole everything, otherwise the black's going to show through. But I'll show you how I'm going to deal with that as we go along. So I've got one side down, and I'll pull this over, and then I'll do the reverse side. And I'm pushing the duct tape down into the gutter between the spine and each side. And I go over it with my bone folder. Make sure I have nice, good, tight adhesion. And now I'm going to do the reverse side. I hope everybody's well, doing well, and things are back to normal for you. They are pretty much normalized where I live, although some places still require masks. It is opening up, and hopefully we'll be able to stay open. I'm just burnishing this down and flipping it back over. Now I have decided to use up some of my many sheets of antique book pages. I have several books that were printed in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and you can see how the paper has discolored some, and I want to use papers that, you know, have a different degree of browning. The reason paper browns is because it's got acid in it. It's when you buy acid-free paper that is usually sold to artists who don't want their paper to discolor. You would buy acid-free. But books are done with paper that has acid, and so that's why over time they discolor. Happily for us in the vintage business, we like the discoloration. So I try to find papers that, you know, have a different degree of discoloration, so I have some variety. And also I look for papers that where the text varies in particularly in size, but maybe also the typeface or the font as well. Just so you have a little variety so it doesn't appear like you put down the same paper everywhere. So what I'm doing is I'm taking off. This is a book of poetry. So I'm going to kind of tear off that section that doesn't have any text on it. But I don't throw away the ends because I know that somewhere along the line I'll find a use for them. And I just don't like the idea of tossing it out, particularly when it's vintage paper. Here's a book that has a lot of speckling. I don't know why that particular way of deteriorating happened with this. I don't know if it got wet or what caused that. Something in the past caused it to speckle. But that's perfect for my usages. Just so you know in advance, I'm going to be using a lot of lace on my journals. In fact, I'm going to cover it with some lace that my sister gave me from her wedding business. So some of her gifting will come back to her in the form of a journal. Well, that's kind of fun. Here's a bunch of pages that I hope I can tear together to save time. That's one thing about vintage paper, is it becomes so delicate that you can do several pages at a time with no problem. And here's another book. Going to kind of leave some of this because it's got some handwriting on. Somebody wrote in the book, and I don't want to get rid of that. Oh. That was quite a few pages altogether, but it tore up very nicely, but only because the paper is very fragile now. But that speeds things up for the crafter, for sure. Okay, that gives me plenty of paper to work with. And I'm going to use a glue stick. I'm going to use a glue stick because that will give me the best overall adhesion. This is going to be the underlay for the lace, but I still want it to adhere very well. All right, let's start with I always look for the side that has the most text on it, which would be this side, and then I glue the opposite side because I prefer text over bare spots. It's your choice whether you want to glue your papers overlapping onto the other side. I might do some of that on this. I didn't do it on mine, and I'm thinking maybe I'll do that on this one. Of course, I didn't do it with the very first one I laid down there, but so. I'm placing the paper going different directions, just for variety. Not going to matter that much once it's covered over with lace, if that's what you plan to do with yours as well. In this particular case, I'm going to make a cut right here. Oop. That didn't work out quite like I expected. So I'll come back. I'll come back and, where was it? Right here. Time to flip my, start a new clip. So I'll be right back. Alright, here's a place where I might just put down something that I cut off just to fill in that gap. Alright, and then I need something over here. I think I need I'm going to have to pull out some more pages from some of the lighter pages, because I'm winding up with everything that looks like it's the same book. Putting a snip there. All right, that takes care of the front. And now we'll do the inside. Let's make sure this is all going to fold up nicely. Or not fold up, but close up nicely. There's some sections there that need a little touch up. Right, so now pressing on to the inside. Okay, got some lighter pages. I like this a lot. I think I'm going to use the entire page. Yeah, we'll speed things up a little bit too. Okay. I think I'll have this facing out. It has a lot more text on it. I'm using a Scotch brand glue stick, multi-purpose. I got this from Amazon. I think it came 4 in a pack, and I'm quite happy with it. And I think I'll use another one on the other side as well. Here's one that's I just love the color changes. That's fantastic. Here's a poem by William Shakespeare. I think this is a book of some English literature, which is perfect for using in junk journals. But I do like to also find books in foreign languages. I have, I think, one in French and one in Italian. And I think that's really great. You can find them in reasonably good condition and at a good price. I would grab them up if I were you. So I think they're just about there. Just got a few little places to patch over. And this is when some of this tear-off material becomes real handy. I think I'll just do a whole long strip down there. None of this is going to matter because it's all going to be covered over. And then, in addition to that, you're going to have a signature in there that's going to pretty much hide everything, no matter what you do. inside and the outside. I'm just going to do a little touch up here, and then we'll be moving on. Okay, in addition to the book pages, I also like to, put down a few things of a darker nature. You don't have to be able to read them. It's just to have a little bit of darker color, not anything real extreme like black, but to have, some darker browns tones in here. And I can get that easily by just gluing down some random little sayings. Doesn't matter that you won't be able to read them after the lace is put on. I'm just doing this sheerly for color, and just to vary the background a bit. And this is a good way to cover over some of the papers that you may have put down that don't have any text on them and are therefore a little bit more on the boring side. You can come in with just a strip of something darker that has some text on it to kind of get rid of those types of places, or at least minimize them. And that's what I'm doing here. I suppose, one could therefore lay down paper without trimming off the borders. Or maybe you don't feel such a need to have a lot of text in the background on what you make. It's, totally up to you. You could literally leave this as your cover and not put anything else over it, which is an option. But if you're using some really old vintage paper like I am, it is so fragile that I do recommend, if you don't cover it over with something like lace that helps protect it, that maybe you give it a coat of matte medium to kind of seal the paper in and help protect it, because particularly if it's going to get a lot of wear, if someone is going to journal in whatever it is you make, this paper is so fragile. I would not leave it exposed without doing something protective to it. I'm staying away from the gutters as I put down these extra little tidbits of darker colors, because that's just going to be a problem area where the fold of the journal is, and I think it's just better to avoid that altogether if you can. Again, this is just an extra step that I'm putting in there. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I think when it's nice when you cover the lace over to be able to see different colors behind it as long as they're not too, I don't want to say too big a contrast from the general background. Okay. I don't have much of this on the front. I need to maybe do a little more on the front side. Though I am going to glue over all of this, not just the lace, but a focal point that's actually going to cover up a good deal of this. But you might not be doing that with whatever it is you're making. So, you know, take that into consideration. All right, a little touch up in here. And so that concludes part 1 of this journal journey. And I hope you found that enjoyable and helpful to you. If so, please give the video a like and a comment. And be sure and subscribe if you're not already a member of my community. Click the notification bell so you're notified. And that's going to be it for this particular video. And please come back for part 2, where we will finish covering the cover front and back, and then moving on from there to the interior. So I've enjoyed having you. Thanks for sticking with me. This is Miss Darling calling this a wrap. Bye-bye.